Welcome, everybody. We are here to talk about Instagram influencer marketing. I'm Elisa Meredith, the Content Marketing Manager at Tailwind, and I am joined by, who are you?
I don't know. I don't have a name. It's Jeff C. And I just stumbled in to this. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. And if you're watching the replay, howdy from Texas.
Howdy, and howdy from North Carolina. And
Do you say
Jeff,
howdy there? Really?
no, we
I don't
don't.
think so. You're probably just kind of walk around and a little aloof people.
No, Wilmington's pretty friendly.
Okay.
They say
All right.
y'all.
Okay.
I may get there someday, but I'm from Maine, so
Okay.
it may not ever happen. But he's Jeff C. and I'm not. And he manages the Pinterest and Instagram accounts for Social Media Examiner. So I brought him on today so that we can pick his brain about influencer marketing on Instagram. Now, last week we had a chat with Kate All of Simple Pin Media about Pinterest influencer marketing. So I thought, let's talk about Instagram. So Jeff, let's get right into it. What's an Instagram influencer? What do they do?
You know, it's a lot in the news, and there's a lot of topic about it. There's a lot of blog posts being written. To me, and this is just, I think this is Jeff C's definition, is that it's somebody who can move the needle. If you're trying to get more recognition, if you're trying to sell some more products, that's what an influencer does. They actually influence the people to either buy or make a decision or increase your influence by having those influencers be allowed. I mean, kind of aligned with you. So that's what I kind of think an influencer is.
Okay. Yeah. So I think when we think about Instagram influencers, who do you think of?
Well, like Peg Fitzpatrick for one,
Mm-hmm.
she's one because I mean, she actually will. If you look at her stories and some of her Instagram posts, she'll actually say, ad and sponsored, and we'll get into that later on during the show, talking about what you need to do to disclose with the FTC. But and then like Amy Lacurdo, I think that's how you pronounce her last name. She does Living Lacurdo. She's big on Instagram. She does some paid stuff. Holly Homer is a huge influencer, not only on Instagram but on Pinterest and also on
Mm-hmm.
Facebook. I mean, she's is it what is hers? Quirky Mama is hers, and she's really
Yes.
really good. So there's tons, and there's influencers in all sorts of niches. I mean, I actually follow a lot of woodworking people, and there's actually woodworkers who are influencers and YouTube channels about how to do things on a lathe. And so there's influencers in all sorts of markets.
Right. So the key is that what they are known for aligns with what you need or what you're
Right.
trying to sell, right?
For your market or who you're, if you are trying to sell kids shoes, you're probably going to go with some YouTuber who's really big on YouTube who talks to that market, or somebody in Snapchat. So that's what I think of for an influencer.
Yeah. And the great thing about Instagram too is now that we have all the video options, people can do that same sort of thing on Instagram. So when
Yes.
I think of an Instagram influencer, I think probably about fashion
Mm-hmm.
and cosmetics. There are some huge names that are doing influencer work in those niches. So probably those are the ones that come to mind. But how do these people become influencers?
Usually they have some sort of following. And I was lucky enough to have Taylor Bradford on my show last week, and we talked about Instagram and some of the stuff that she does. And it's, you don't have to have a gazillion following. I mean, if you have, let's say, 1,000 people, and you can make a difference and move the needle for a company, then you are what they would call a micro influencer. And there's been a big push lately for companies to use micro influencers because they are very effective. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you have an audience and people are listening to you regularly, and you can, what you suggest or use matters to people, then you are an influencer. And companies are starting to get wise on that, because lots of times they're a lot more affordable. And they can just do as much as if they paid some big star and it was just kind of out there. But these smaller influencers seem to have a kind of a rabid following. I mean, there's a reason those people are following them. They're checking out their stuff daily. They're watching their videos because they want to see what's going on. And even if you only have 1,000, I only have 1,000 people on my Instagram account. It still matters to people. And so companies are really kind of dialing into that.
Yeah, that's right. So Melissa's here. Hi, Melissa. And she said her boyfriend is
That's
into
right.
the wind Instagram influencers too. And yeah, there are niches for everything. So like Jeff said, you don't have to have 1 million people following you. You could be a micro influencer as long as people are paying attention and as long as what you do impacts their decisions and their buying decisions.
Mm-hmm. And I found that Instagram is less noisy. You can connect with, like, if you're two influencers or to me, just for an example, I started about a year ago, made my handcrafted pins out of wood. And so I started following these woodworking companies, and they noticed me when I posted pictures about that, and they followed me back. And so then conversation happens. And so that is really cool. It seems like it happens more on Instagram, at least for me in my experience, because it's not so noisy. It's not like Twitter where you have all this stuff going by, and even Facebook can get really noisy if you're not in a specific group. But on Instagram, I just think you can connect with people, and people can connect with brands a lot easier. And even some of these smaller companies they really want that. They really want this following. I mean, there's a whole market on Instagram for beard products, like beard oil and combs. And, there's a great one called Grave Before Shave. And then there's the Texas Beard Company and all these places. And they're doing great Instagram stuff. And they are finding other bearded guys who are influencers, and they're using that to their advantage.
So are you doing that yet?
I actually kind of am. This is a new one that I got from Texas Beard Company. It's pumpkin spice, which I'm not a big fan of pumpkin spice, but it's cool. So.
Will your dog lick it off you?
No, that's gross. But like this is awesome because now my man cave smells like a man cave. This is a candle, but it's warm pipe tobacco, and it smells awesome. So, but stuff like that, and I found that over in Instagram. So,
okay. So
cool
even though your actual business is more visual marketing, Pinterest, Instagram, video, you could potentially be an influencer for all these beard products because that's what people think of when they think of you. They think of the beard, right?
The beard, yeah. Well, it's part of branding, but I'm not trying to get this stuff. But some of these guys are proactive and that's we're going to talk about how to connect with influencers. A lot of times it's just sending them things. I've done that with influencers. Said, hey, I made this. Here, what do you think? And that's a great way to get started with pretty much little or no budget. This probably didn't cost them a bunch for them to send because they already had it in stock, but they made a fan because they did that. And so that kind of stuff can be some of that guerrilla influencing, I think, can be a big deal.
Yeah. So they made a fan in you, but then you also are going to share it on your Instagram, and people are looking up to you for some recommendations. So let's ask this question here from Hershey. How do you find a niche influencers? How do you think the Texas Beard Company found you?
They probably just did. They probably found it through a hashtag when I did something about a beard or something like that. One of the things you don't want to do if you're trying to get an influencer, don't say, hey, because I've had this happen. Hey, I'd love for you to, check out this product. I'd love to send it to you. And I'm like, cool. And then they send me a coupon for $2 off. That's not the way to do it. If you want to do it, you need to, try to get them on board. So, you want to comment on posts, you want to search hashtags, you want to interact. You don't want to just, go. There are companies that will find micro influencers, but from what I've seen, and I've seen the best way is kind of organically where it just kind of happens. Like you'll start seeing their posts like, hey, I'm going to follow them. Then after a while, you see that they have a decent network, and maybe that will be something that, you want to get involved with. I would do a work with a chocolate company, and there's all these, one influencer was doing unboxing of chocolates, and she unboxed one of our chocolates and tagged us in the post, and like, holy, we didn't even know about her, but she did this video. And so that would be a perfect example for us to use later. Like, oh, hey, we have a new Christmas chocolate coming out. We need to send it to her for an unboxing. And, then it could develop to, okay, we're going to pay her to talk about it on her Instagram stories or whatever. So that kind of organic way, I think, is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. So speaking of paying for it, how does it work? Do they pay for a post? Do they pay per likes? How does it work?
I've done some research on this, and yes. It's all over the map. You have to come up with a plan. I haven't found one one way that it works for everybody, like a standardized thing. Usually, sometimes they do bids for multiple influencers. Some of the bigger companies want to do that. They'll send out a bid, and then you kind of bid on what you're going to do. Some of them contact you and say, "We'll do this for this much," and you can negotiate. Sometimes you can't. So sometimes it's like, okay, I want you to do this many posts, this many blog posts, and boost it this much. So it can really range, but the key is you need to know what you're worth, and then how much time it's going to take, and go that way.
Okay. All right. So Hershey has another question about what hashtags to use. I'm assuming we're talking about when looking for an influencer. So in the case of the beard company, obviously it would be something about beards. I'm not really up on the beard hashtags, Jeff. What ones do you typically?
It just depends. The narrower, you're going to have to, and Tailwind has a great, hashtag tool, but you want to find ones, just like when I do posts, I kind of have some of the larger ones, but then I also try to niche down on whatever topic I'm talking about. So it's the same kind of thing. You want to look in there, and then you want to see if, this is if you're trying to find an influencer, what content they're putting out, if they're going to align with you and what you stand for. I mean, I've had some that I won't do because I don't believe in putting, curses out and cursing and foul language out on a post, and I see that they do that. So that's not going to work for me. But you want to make sure you're aligned and your followers align with them, because the last thing you want to do is get sponsored by a guy who's going to do something that you don't want him to do. Yeah. So you look at it that way, and then you reach out and say, you want to get analytics. You want to see, okay, what are you usually getting, how much traffic are you getting per post? Can you, give us examples of how you've worked with other brands before to see how much, their ROI is, how many times they're driving traffic to your landing page, what's the cost per conversion, all that kind of stuff. So if they can't do that, I would try to move on and get some more things. You don't just want to give somebody blanket money and say, hey, we're gonna influence you. We're gonna give you all our influencers. I mean, it doesn't really work. So that's kind of my advice.
Yeah. So if you're coming from the other angle, if you want to be an influencer, then you need to have a process in place to report on results.
Yeah.
So, you have that one link in your profile. If you make it a bit.ly link for each sponsored post, you don't want to do more than one at a time, I would imagine.
Right.
Then you can report on that.
And if you're doing Instagram stories, because to me, that's a lot of where the engagement's going to happen now. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing a lot of the Instagram posts, a lot of the engagement move to stories, and doing sponsored stories is starting to be a thing that I've seen a lot of. So you want to make sure that you have a business account and that you can get those analytics for your stories. How many people are watching those stories? How many times? What's the, from your start story to your end story? What's the fall off rate when people are leaving? Is it pretty consistent? They're staying on. That's something that brands will want to know, and you'll be able to say, hey, look, I have this, they complete it most of the time, and I only lose 20% or whatever, and have that to speak to brands.
Yeah. And some people have that link in stories option. I think if you have over 10,000 followers, you'll get that option. So those could be tracked as well. This is a good question from Leanne. I hope I'm saying it right. But as an influencer, how can you gather more traffic or interest to your post to get people to actually click on the link so companies might want to work with you again? And I think that's kind of the challenge with Instagram is getting clicks.
Right. And so you might want to have to do some creative things. But yeah, Instagram's tough because, you have that one link in your bio. You could maybe do a contest. You might be able to drive them with this. I've seen a lot of people now with stories using a special code. Hey, if you want, go, it's almost like podcasting does. They'll say, hey, Tailwind's offering 10% off, and as long as you go and you use this code on your site, and that way they can track it, and then that way you can prove that you're sending traffic their way. But you also want to manage expectations. Sometimes these small businesses come on and want to hire an influencer and they think they're going to be, on the Super Bowl. You got to really manage expectations and let them know, this is normal. It's a longer term thing. Here's how we can, work with you and bring visibility to your brand, but it doesn't mean automatically you're going to make gazillion dollars worth of sales. You really have to manage those expectations.
Yeah, you're right. As far as pricing goes, Vanessa mentions that she's heard about $100 per post for every 10,000 in followers. And that probably works better for the bigger companies and the bigger influencers who are often willing to spend money on awareness alone. Mm-hmm. So those kind of deals might not be as interested in or as tied to how many clicks you get. They're just interested in getting their message out and reaching a new audience, which is kind of nice.
It also will. It's going to vary wildly by industry. Fashion people, they know it works. They're going to be willing to spend more money. It's going to take a while for. My woodworking influencers probably aren't getting the same amount as the big fashion Instagrammers. I just have a feeling. So you just have to. It's going to vary by industry, and then you can look around and you don't want to give yourself away, but you want to be competitive.
Yeah. And Tim mentions that he has tried an influencer like matchmaker site, and they didn't,
right.
didn't do much for him. So I think you're right. There are a lot of organic ways to do it. It would work better. So as an influencer, do you recommend sponsoring a post from Chesky?
I'm not sure, but if we want to get into what it means to now you have to disclose when you do these sponsored posts on Instagram and pretty much everywhere, what you have to do, because
I think anything you do with influencer marketing does involve sponsoring, whether it's a blog post or the video or the post. So you're going to be sponsoring a post, but we could go into that. What are the rules as far as in the US anyway? The FTC is pretty strict about it. So what have you heard recently?
So now, one of the confusing thing is Instagram has this new tool, and I know we have it on Social Media Examiners accounts, where you can have brands and tag them. And a lot of people think that's all you need, is that you have that new branding tool that Instagram has. That doesn't do anything for the FTC. It just kind of links those things together. And like I mentioned, I had Taylor on the show, and she said she just had on her podcast the FTC on there. And one of the things, and once again, I'm not a lawyer, so take this with a grain of salt. Double check everything I say. I may be leading you astray, but make sure. She says there's 3 hashtags you can use, and it's hashtag sponsored, or ambassador. Those are the ones that the FTC has said that they want to see. And what's really interesting is you have to make sure that is before the read more or any of that stuff. Yeah. So she was saying just do it first, get it out of the way. She goes, we have to eat. People understand that it's not that big a deal. So double check that those are the right. I just gave that information, but double check. Don't take my word for it. Make sure that is correct. But you want to make sure that you have those before the read more, and then the first thing, like if you do a story, you want to make sure you have that. If you're doing, because there's not really a good way to put sponsored on a story, but you got to have it on there, and you have to have it legible. So do that right away if you're doing like a sponsored story.
So how would you do that? Can you go back and add a sticker or something, or
you'd have to do a sticker? You'd have to do, you can do the hashtag stickers in the story. So you'd have to do that.
Okay. So a question here: influencers get so many messages and requests to sponsor that most don't even respond to their inquiries. What's the best way to contact them if they don't have a contact email, or even if they do and they're not seeing it?
Because influencers do get, and I just know this from Social Media Examiner, we get a lot of spammy direct messages. Mm-hmm. And Tim, I just said most young influencers don't use email, which is true. Direct message them probably. And do it in a way that doesn't seem spammy, because there's so many, and usually you can find them on some other network. If they're not responding on direct messages on Instagram, you might try to find their their Twitter handle, and do something there. But don't be spammy, because we get them all the time. Hey, partner with us, and and so one, they want to make sure that you're legit to even waste time on you. So make sure that message doesn't look spammy at all.
Yeah, but like you were saying about Instagram, there's not as much noise there as other places, certainly not as much as in your email. So what you could do is you could send a personalized video just to them. And I've had people do that to ask me to speak on a conference, and where I probably wouldn't have. It's like, oh, the custom video, it got me.
I know, it makes a difference.
It really does. It's like they actually care. And if you can explain right then how your brand aligns with their brand, that will save them some time and help them to make that decision right away. A question from Brittany: how do you feel about campaigns that ask you to include a link in your Instagram bio? Is it worth it to remove your personal link in lieu of a campaign link, even if it's only for a couple of days? I think that's an individual question to answer.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't have a problem with that. I'm even been on conference before when I just wanted to help drive traffic to the conference, and I put it in there because that's the only place to do it, unless you have the 10,000 plus followers where you can have the swipe up in stories, which is very handy. And Peg had a good point. You may want to bring up her comment about to use company and partner like Tailwind Partner for disclosure. So like I said, double check everything, because that's what Taylor told me, because she talked to the FTC. I haven't done deep research into it because I don't do a lot of sponsored stuff, but Peg would know. So double check that. And thanks, Peg, for that comment.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as getting paid, Tim asked earlier, and I can't find it right now, but he wanted to know if here it is. They meet you in a car park with an envelope of cash. Yeah. I'm not sure I would agree to that kind of arrangement.
He's in the UK, the whole pounds thing, and how many stone do you get? I don't even all that stuff. So just
they have money over there?
Pay Tim in like clams or something, okay. Or bottle caps. He'd probably like that. So
caps, yeah. So that does bring up an interesting point in a roundabout way, which is you do want to have it all in writing, just like any other business arrangement. Even though it's just on Instagram, you need to have it written down. You have to write down what you expect to get, how long you need to leave the post up, because sometimes you're required to leave it and sometimes you can take it down. You definitely want to know that, how long you need to leave the link up, and how you're getting paid. And is there any way they can come back and say, well, this didn't work out, we're not going to pay you? So yeah.
With that, and this is just general stuff on anything, is like I always at least get 50% up front. Yeah. I mean, because otherwise if they say, well, it didn't really work, we didn't get as much traffic as we said, so we're not going to, then they have so I would at least get half up front for an influencer campaign. That's just me. You guys can, barter or whatever. Tim may do it for free. So
Tim. Craig does it for meatballs. So
yeah, that's right.
You could work with a meatball company.
I'll remember that, Craig. I'll send you some spaghetti or something.
Some meatballs, yeah. Okay, so you did mention that there are some smaller brands that are engaging influencers, and if you're interested in working with some of those smaller brands, would you suggest that you just start kind of buttering them up, becoming their favorite fan, maybe liking a lot of their posts, commenting on their posts to try to get their attention? Or would you go straight for the DM or video and say, hey, this is my audience, I think I could help you out?
So you're saying you want somebody to pay you to be an influencer?
Yeah.
See, that just, to me, it always happens organically. I know there's services you can, like Tim even mentioned, register with, or you can kind of get brokered deals. I don't, trying to grease the wheels a little bit just seems not very, it's, to me, the best stuff always happens organically. Now you can, and they'll if you have an influence in a certain niche, and there's businesses they will notice you because you'll be an influencer, and so saying, hey, I'm an influencer, and putting that in your bio just doesn't, that just rubs me the wrong way. I don't think it's the right way to do it.
Yeah, but one thing I would do probably, if there was a particular brand that I felt like, oh, my followers would love this and I know I could get them value, I would probably look at their posts, comment on them, like a few, just genuinely,
right,
because you like them, but also notice the hashtags that they use and try to use some of those, because they're going to be searching for themselves in that hashtag search. Right. So it would be good if you came up at the same time. Okay, so let's say I'm a small brand and I can't really pay for this. Is there something else you could do on a smaller scale that would have a similar impact?
Ask the question again. I'm sorry.
Okay. A smaller brand, and maybe they don't have the budget to pay for an influencer to post, or they're not willing to pay for awareness.
Right.
But they want something similar. I'll tell you what I was thinking. I was thinking that sometimes, and it may not work with business and influencer, but maybe business to business, is post swap. So if you have you seen that work well?
I've seen it happen. Once again, I think it's organically. My thing is, if a business says I don't have a budget and they want to do it, they can probably find somebody, even if it's like giving something away. Yeah, and if there's a product, like Tim was saying, if there's a product, giving something away, and then have them. I mean, usually when somebody sends me any sort of swag, I take a picture of it and put it on Instagram anyway, just because it's. I think I'm thankful for it, and so I think a lot of brands don't think about that, because that gets a lot of post and reach, and I mean all that stuff is when that happens, and so I would do something like that. I mean, when brands are trying to really not pay any money, it's hard for them to do any good. I mean, you know what I mean? They have that attitude of like, I don't know if I'd want to work with them anyway. But I think if you're a small business and you have, let's say you're in the local market, then I would look on what, having if you're wanting people to review your restaurant, then give them a free meal and come in and, take the picture with it and you use it yourself. Right. Kind of get maybe some influence people around the community, like the mayor of your town coming in, then there's stuff you can do even if you don't have a budget, I think.
Yeah. And with the Texas Beard Company, they sent you something, you probably took a picture of it and posted it yourself. They would be wise to reach out to you and say, hey, Jeff, can I regram that? Can we share that? Yeah, because that's great user-generated content they can then share with their audience too.
Perfect example. I took a picture of the Waffle House it was a Waffle House in Texas, and it was a real pretty sunset, and I took a picture of it, and I made some joke because, East Texas and the sun setting over the Waffle House. Well, and I posted it on Instagram, but then I posted it to Twitter, and they must have been listening because I didn't use any of the hashtags. They were searching for Waffle House, and they contacted me on Instagram, said, hey, can we regram this to all our places? I'm like, sure, no problem. And they did, and it went out to all these people, my photo of the Waffle House. But the key is they were listening, and they were, and that's one of the things, and you and I have talked about this too, is the way you listen, you can find a lot of people, like when people tag the chocolate company that I work for in an Instagram post, because we send it out all across the country, I first of all ask them, hey, can I use this on our post? I've never had anybody say no. But the funny thing is, then I go to Facebook and I see they usually have shared it as well. So then I can share it to our Facebook page. And so, one, I make them really happy because we're pushing their brand. Yeah. And two, it makes us look really good because we're in all these different places and all these different locations. And so start looking at that and starting to listen to people who are sharing your content is a great way, I think, for brands to, cultivate influencers.
Right. And how much money did that cost?
$0. See, yeah, I'm all about the zero. Yeah.
That's our favorite kind.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a good question from Vera. What if you're not in a niche? Quite the opposite, like travel or cooking.
See, those are niches. They are niche or niche or whatever you want to say. Travel's huge. Cooking's huge on Instagram. I mean, Tasty Made, and I have a friend all the way back from my Google Plus days, and she's Craft Shack. And she now has an RV, and she goes around the country and teaching people how to do art from her RV and doing these classes and stuff. And I've always followed her on Instagram, and it's huge. And she has all these followers, and she does these live videos where she teaches on people how to paint, and people pay her Patreon account, and she makes money and goes all around and does this stuff, and it's having a ball. And so that's something that she figured out how to do on Instagram. I mean, started on Google Plus, and she uses Instagram to push out her brand. And I mean, it's just really cool.
Very good. Okay, Elizabeth has a question. What's the least tacky way for a micro-influencer to ask for a brand to share content of yours that includes their product? Most of the time, like if it's good quality content, they want to share it. So if you tag them in your original post, they're likely going to see it. And if they want to share it, they're going to ask you. Right. So that's about as aggressive as I would probably get.
Yeah, and then if they're smart about it, they'll notice you tagging them. And then it may not be the first one you do, but if you maybe do a series or you do once a week for a month, they're probably going to notice that you're doing that. If they're smart, they will. And that's like what Elisa said, is just to that's probably the least tackiest way to do it.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess I misunderstood Vera's question. How do you get noticed as an influencer? I would say use some of the same hashtags that the brand that you're interested in working with is using.
One of the things is don't use hashtags and don't tag people for has nothing to do with you. We get that on Social Media Examiner all the time. As people tag pictures of us, they tag us on like a picture of the beach, which has nothing. They're just trying to get people to look at you. And the problem is with Instagram, you have to go look at it. If you have it, you get a notification you're tagged, and so you click on it to go look, and you're like, that was a waste of time. No, block. Yeah. So I'll make sure that if you're doing those tags, and make sure it's not like blurred out in the background and people are going, why did she tag me in that? You want to make sure that it's prominent in the photo.
Yeah, so you want to provide value even before you have a business relationship. Otherwise, There's no reason for them to expect a business relationship would work. Mm-hmm. Chasky asks, how do you feel about companies asking to repost a picture that you tagged and then send you a terms in the fine details it says they might use it for printing, marketing, giving up your rights for free?
That's pretty much, Waffle House didn't do that. They just asked if they could repost it, and I said yes. If they're asking to do that and they don't want to compensate you for it, if you're going to give up your right and you don't want to do that, then don't do it. Don't sign it. And don't let them repost. If they're not going to, if they get it forever, you probably don't want to do that. If they're just going to repost it through their Instagram account, that'd be fine. But if they're going to market, and you're getting a lot of those, if you're taking awesome pictures, like let's say you're in the hotel or travel industry and you take fabulous photos of hotels, and they want to start doing that, then I would have a set fee and say, hey, you're welcome to, repost it on Instagram. But if you want to use it for print, this is my license to allow you to do that. It's $50 or whatever, and go that way. So I wouldn't give anything away for free. I don't mind if they do it on, like if Waffle House said, hey, we want to splash that on the side of a bus, the picture, I'd be like, I think you probably need to pay me something.
Yes,
that's just the way I feel. I don't mind you doing it on Instagram. That's kind of cool. Look, my photos there. But if you want to, use it on your national Super Bowl ad, probably need to pay you something.
I agree. Yeah. So Samantha feels like if you're a micro influencer, you need to buy their products and use them. It sounds like a lot of money spent on the off chance they might like your content. I would, if I were a micro influencer just starting out, I would start with things I'm already buying, using, and loving anyway. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think it's worth that investment if you're not sure what's going to happen.
Right. And the stuff with like the beard stuff and I was using this another brand, and it was I just liked their stuff, and they had great branding. It was great before shave, and I loved their stuff, and I thought it was cool, and that was where that kind of came from.
Yeah. Okay. The stance on hashtags: use a couple, 11, or all 30, and should they be in the comment or caption? Functionally, it makes no difference about comment or caption.
I usually do it in the comment, and I use the the 4 dot return thing.
You're using it in the caption though, right?
Well, it's the comment right after it, and it collapses it. And if you look at Social Media Examiner's Instagram account, you'll see it kind of hides it, and it's just kind of makes it clean. I like doing it that way. It, like you said, it doesn't matter. I use as many hashtags as I think are going to work, and I test those and rotate them in and out and just see what's working. So because I hide them, it doesn't show them all. Like if you're scrolling through the comments, it's not this big gobble of whatever. Exactly. So I do it that way.
Yeah. And as far as numbers go, I've seen various studies, but most of the ones I've seen is between 7 and 11 is where they perform the best. So you could try that out for yourself. And again, that the Tailwind Instagram scheduler has a hashtag finder. It has hashtag lists. So it will be really easy to say, okay, today I'm going to use my list of 7 hashtags. Tomorrow I'm going to use my list of 11, alternate them, and see if you can find a pattern of what works better.
And one thing I will say about that, and Peg taught me this, is hashtags will change. So you don't want to just be using the same hashtags throughout the year. You want to go double check and see if they're still relevant, because like some of them all of a sudden be shot full of spam, and they're not really worth even putting on your posts anymore. Sure. And there's some of the big, huge hashtags that you don't even want to use anymore because they're just gross. So just double check those, that things that you thought worked last year or last month even may not still be relevant.
Yeah, and some of them are kind of inactive and hidden from search at certain times, and they might come back again. So you just go into Instagram, search that hashtag, see if you get a whole lot of results from that hashtag. If you don't, if it says that it's been cut off due to misuse or whatever, then don't use it because it won't help you. Okay, so one last question, then we're gonna go to news. How do you make the transition from getting free product as an influencer to also getting paid? I think you just get bigger. You get more followers. You show more results. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, and sometimes I'm still like half and I mean, it kind of, some things are free, some things are paid, and it's just kind of what you want to do. And you have, as your following grows, you will get more offers for paid things. And so, but you also don't want to just be in it to just get the numbers, because, you could buy fake followers right now and have, 50,000 people following you. But the problem is when those brands ask to see your stats and nobody is clicking through, then it's not going to be worth it and they're never going to use you again. So, right. And more brands are getting savvy to, these influencers who can really move the needle, even if they're smaller numbers. I think this next year you'll really see people really targeting that more and spending more money on that, because they know that these people have followers within a real audience that really cares about what they say.
That's right. Okay. So on to some news. The last few weeks have been just full of news items about very powerful people, men so far, who have been accused of misconduct. Mm-hmm. And not only are they losing their jobs and their reputations, but the people who have sponsored them as influencers for their brand have to shut them off, right? They don't want that to tarnish their brand as well. So there's a really great post on Facebook right now by Mark Schaefer. Then I just shared that link there about how to protect yourselves from that kind of possible bad outcome. And it really comes down to whether your brand values and their personal values align. And mm-hmm. There are definitely ways to find out.
Yeah. So, follow them and see what they're posting. And, I would double check not just their Instagram, because, a lot of times you'll just show the best of the best on Instagram,
right?
But check them out on the other social platforms too, and make sure that they align with and we mentioned this before, with your values. I mentioned what I will and won't do with stuff I share on my account. So it's just, you need to make sure, and especially with everything going on now, that people's tolerance are really low. And if you accidentally share something that somebody else has been accused of, then you're tied to that person. Mark Schaefer compares it to divorce. And so when divorce happens, there's always some consequences. There's always some ugly stuff that happens. And so just be aware that they align with your values if you're going to partner with them.
It doesn't have to be super high tech either. You can always ask around. If they're an influencer and you're a pretty big brand, people know them, mm-hmm. and they'll usually tell you.
Yep.
Okay. So, question about some news. Instagram has started testing allowing people to follow hashtags, which I'm very excited about. So how do you think that's going to change things if that goes ahead?
I just think it'll be another way for people to get discovered easier. I think it's, a lot, like I do a lot of social media stuff. So being able to just follow social media marketing hashtag easily will be cool to have it come up, because everything's going, to me, that's telling me they're gonna start really tightening the algorithm more. And so being able to search for hashtags and making sure you come up in the hashtags is going to be more and more important. It hasn't rolled out yet for everybody, but they're testing it, and I have a feeling they will start doing that.
I hope so. I'm very excited about it, because I feel like there are probably a lot more people I could follow to find out all the Pinterest news, all the Instagram news, but I don't necessarily want to, because I only want to see that relevant content. So I do appreciate that extra option.
But it'll be handy too when you, like if you have your hashtag, like hashtag Tailwind app or whatever, that, people like, why is that person using that hashtag, and kind of monitor your branded hashtag to make sure that, you got the right people.
That's a great point. Great point. Okay. So another bit of news is that we can now use all of our photos and videos in our camera roll for Instagram stories. Why is this big news?
Before it was just 24 hours, and you could get away with it with some apps like Storeo and Continui, I think, is one of the other ones that allowed you to go and pull up things. Now you can use like past anything in your camera roll, which is really, really cool. So it's a great way if you wanted to do a story of like a Throwback Thursday from like 2003 or whatever, you can actually go and do that. So it's very, very cool.
Too. Okay, so we might have talked about this last time, but I'm not sure, and there's probably been some updates to this, so we can share stories to Facebook.
Yeah, so stories, I still haven't got it to my account yet, last I checked. It's there, but it's supposed to be an option in your story that you can share it to Facebook. That just came out yesterday. Facebook killed Messenger Day, and so they're streamlining the process. So being able to do this, I think it's going to be more important. More people will see your stories. We've been talking about sponsored posts, which is great for influencers or who want to, share their stuff also to Facebook and get more eyeballs on it. I think that's a great feature that's coming out.
Agreed. So you're providing even more value. That's cool. And then this was neat when this came out. Split screen videos for Instagram Live. I saw you and Eric Fisher did one, and it looks just like this, right? You're side by side.
Well, it's top to bottom because it's vertical video.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so it's very cool. So we break the news, we go live on Facebook, and then we immediately go live now on Instagram, and it's really cool because it actually you have the option to send it to your stories when you're done. So it only lasts for 24 hours though, and there's no way to download it. So just be aware of that. Now you could do it with the new iOS and record and do like a screen capture if you wanted to use it somewhere else. Okay. But it's very, very cool. It works really, really nicely. And we're getting a lot of engagement over there on Instagram from those split screen lives.
Is it easy to do?
Yeah, it's really easy to do. Yeah.
So what do you do?
The way you can tell make sure you have the new Instagram, at least 20 version 20.0. And when you go and start doing a live, and you'll see these two stacked smiley face emojis, and you click on that and you can invite people in to the call. They come in the call, you can kick them out, they can leave when they want, then you can bring in somebody else. So it's very, very fun.
Okay, neat. And so you can bring anyone in who's on the broadcast. Is that how it works?
Yep.
Okay.
That's how it works. It's really nice. Yeah.
Okay. And then stories are more prominent in the main feed of Instagram?
Yes. So before, they're really pushing stories on Instagram. In fact, the numbers are, there is now 500 million daily active users on Instagram, which is like double that of Snapchat, and 300 million daily active viewers of Instagram stories. So if you're not used to doing vertical video, you need to start because it's going to be big, and a lot of businesses still aren't using it. And so there's a great big opportunity there for people who are getting on stories and learn how to story tell using stories. So so it's more prominent. They're really pushing stories. And when you would scroll up on your Instagram feed, there would be like, don't miss these stories from your friends, and they have those little circles kind of in the middle. Right. Now they're huge. They're like these big screenshots of the story, so you kind of see what it's about, and it's like a carousel, so you can scroll through it. So it's a great way to you see those stories.
Yeah, can't miss it. This I don't know anything about. You're testing stop motion camera on Instagram?
Yes, and I have it. So it's really cool. So it's exactly what it says it is. So you it's the same place where your camera is, where you have like replay and you have the boomerang. Well, there's another one called stop motion, and it allows you to take pictures, and it shows up a little screenshot, and you take all these pictures and you move things around. They had a BB-8 droid from Star Wars going around, and at the end it stitches them all together to like an animated GIF and the stop motion thing, and it's very, very cool. And you can't edit individual photos, but you can at the very, very end when you click on done. It allows you to add stickers or locations or whatever. So it's very cool. Yeah, it's kind of like Vine, Elizabeth. You're right.
So have you made one yet on your?
I have. I played with it. I haven't posted it, but I've been messing around with it. Because the other cool thing that came out around Halloween was the Super Zoom, and my kids have been doing it manually for years. So if you're not familiar with Super Zoom, you bring it up on the camera, and you have this like targeting box, and whatever you put in it, you hold down the button, it does this 3-step zoom and adds the sound effect. And then if you hold it, it does this like slow for the entire 15 seconds. But it's very fun. It's just one sound effect. Hopefully they'll add more, but it's a lot of fun to play with.
All right. Lots of cool stuff going on. And so much of it has to do with video. I think we probably need to take the hint.
And stories is huge. I mean, it's not going away. Facebook is really wanting you to do that. I mean, they even killed a product because they wanted to streamline it and push you guys to use Instagram stories to Facebook as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Okay. And that looks like it. I think I missed a couple of questions, but I will definitely go back and get them in the comments. So thank you everybody for being here. Thank you especially Jeff for trying all these cool new things and for talking to us about Instagram influencer marketing. We will be back in December to talk about all the fresh new things, because there are going to be some, plus a hot topic. So if you have suggestions on what you'd like to learn more about regarding Instagram, feel free to let us know, and we'll see if we can work it in. So I appreciate everybody being here, and especially you, Jeff, and have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.